Welcome back to my epic self-inflicted torture session. Woohoo! Yeah! Wow, pretty epic campsite, guys. Hey guys, how you going? Thank you very much for joining me on another video. I really appreciate it. This one's a little bit different to my normal videos. This is a post-hike gear review. I've recently completed an epic solo trip through the Australian wilderness. I spent 4 days traveling through some pretty amazing country. If you haven't seen that video yet, I'll put a link here. It was a fantastic experience, amazing trip. And I really recommend you watch that video first if you haven't seen it already, because it'll help put this gear into context. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through all the gear I had with me on that trip, what I used, what I wore, what maybe I didn't use as much as I thought I would, what perhaps wasn't used at all, what worked, what didn't work. So yeah, grab yourself a cup of coffee, maybe a beer if you're that way inclined, and yeah, let's go through all of the gear that I had with me on that trip. So I'm going to start off with the gear that I was wearing on the trip. When I do a trip like this, I'll typically wear the same clothes for the entire trip. So during the day, I'm wearing the same shoes, the same socks, the same pants, the same gaiters, the same hat, the same shirt. When I get to camp, I'll have a change of clothes and I'll have some spare items of clothing that I can change if the weather is colder or wetter than expected. So to kick things off, I'm going to start with the shoes that I wore. Now these are an Adidas Terex Swift R2 shoe. The reason I chose these is they're not waterproof. Now, for those of you who've watched the trip, you would have seen that I did a lot of walking in the water. I really wanted a non-waterproof pair of shoes so that the water would drain out of that shoe and I wouldn't be lugging around extra weight, and also that my feet would be as dry as possible when you are walking through water. So these are more like a sports shoe. They're sort of a hybrid hiking shoe, I guess you could say. They've got soles made by Continental, so I really like Vibram. I know I can depend on it. I have to say though, the Continental grip proved itself pretty good. One thing I found in this trip that was a little bit different to previous ones is because of the recent rains that we've had, there was a lot of sand in the system, and I was getting wet feet from walking through the creek, stepping on sand, and then stepping onto rocks and boulders, and that was proving to be a little bit slippery. But I have to say, these shoes were very comfortable. They've held up relatively well for a lightweight shoe. There's certainly signs of wear. They were brand new when they started. But yeah, I really like this, and I think going forward, any sort of trips where I'm going to be walking water, I'm definitely going to be wearing a non-waterproof shoe. In my shoes, I use Superfeet. These are an insert, so you take the little rubber inlay out and you replace it with these. These can be cut to size and fitted to any sort of shoe just about. I have really flat feet, and so for me, when I'm covering a long distance, so I did a couple of 20+ kilometer days, these really help me just manage that kind of distance. I find they make the walking more comfortable for me. So yeah, Superfeet, they're a great little insert. There's a range of different types depending on how high or low your arches are or what it is that you're after. But I've been using these for a few years now, and I really like them. Probably the piece of gear I get the most questions about are the gaiters that I wear. I wear gaiters all the time, every trip, and I do that because it provides a lot of protection from your shins and your ankles, your lower leg when you're walking through scrub, but also they provide protection from snakes. Now I'm not going to say these are definitely snake proof, and if you get bitten on the leg, these are going to stop that, but for me they give me an extra peace of mind. The gaiters that I've been wearing now for more than the last decade, and this is probably my 4th or 5th pair of those, are Cedar Summit Quagmire gaiters. There's a couple of different versions. I've tried both the Event fabric, which is a light waterproof fabric, and the tougher canvas, which is what these are. These are really comfortable gaiter. I wear a size medium. These were fairly brand new when I started the trip. They had a few trips in them, but I've really put them through the paces on a trip like this. The feet straps have gone. on one of them. They're about to go on the second one. I've managed to pull out a few studs. You know, the sort of walking that I was doing on this trip was a very kind of on the extreme end. Most people wouldn't do that, and so your gear's going to last a lot longer than it does for me. But yeah, I really like the Cedar Summit Quagmire gaiter. The pants that I was wearing are a Montane Terra pant. I've been wearing this type of pant for probably about 12 or 13 years, and this would be about my 5th pair of those pants. I really like them. They're lightweight. They dry quickly, they're really tough. They've got reinforced knees, a reinforced butt. They've got vents on the side so you can get a bit of extra airflow. The only thing I don't like about them is I find the pockets open by themselves quite regularly, and that's a bit of a problem when you're walking through rough country, pulling up against scrub, or you're kind of wading through water and stuff can float out of your pockets. So that's the only downside. Other than that, I absolutely love these pants, and yeah, I'll be wearing them again and again. On a trip like this, I find it's really important to wear a long sleeve shirt. It helps protect from the sun. There was a lot of flies around on the first day, which you would have seen, and so this covers that skin from the March flies, which were pretty bad this trip, I have to say. So what I use is just a workwear shirt. This is a hard yakka workwear shirt. It's a cotton polyester blend, and that's exactly the same sort of blend that the really expensive hiking shirts that you can buy will be made of. Those hiking shirts can be, say, $100, $120, $150. I paid $45 for this. It's tougher, it's thicker. And these are absolutely great thing to have in the bush. I've been trying different types over the years, and I stay away now from the full cotton ones because when it's humid or you sweat a lot or it's hot, it can be quite difficult to dry a full cotton shirt. And on a trip like this, where I was walking through water the whole time, the shirt would have been quite damp and quite difficult to dry. So the cotton polyester blend, I think, gives a nice kind of balance between breathability and ability to dry. My hat, my trusty hat, I've had this for a few years. It's a Patagonia hat. Not much to say about it other than it's comfortable, it provides good shade, and it can be scrunched up and shoved in a bag. Yeah, I really like that bit of kit. It's also got a bit of cord which seems to, I managed to like kind of tuck it in and do all sorts of silly things, so I look ridiculous on the camera from time to time, but I do love that hat. And a pair of sunglasses. I always have sunglasses with me. The first day I spent probably 4 or 5 hours walking directly into the sun. It would have been it was pretty tough, even with sunglasses. Without them, it would have been just absolute torture. So I've got a pair of Oakley, I think they're Sliver, polarized sunglasses. I've had these for years, love them. So if you've been researching hiking or backpacking, bushwalking, you probably would have come across a lot of the ultralight threads where people in the ultralight community don't seem to carry spare clothes. I understand why, there's a fair bit of weight involved, but for me, I want to have a comfortable and enjoyable camp, and so I like to have, particularly when I'm walking through water, I like to have spare clothes that I can change into so I'm dry and warm. So I always carry a Gore-Tex jacket. So this is a lightweight Gore-Tex jacket from Arc'teryx. It's ridiculously expensive. I only bought it because it was on sale and was able to get most of it as a gift for Christmas. I really like a lightweight Gore-Tex jacket like this. It probably weighs about 400 grams. Very tough material, keeps you dry. Pretty essential piece of kit in my view. And I actually didn't use this jacket at all, but I think for me, being responsible and being prepared and having the equipment with you, it's always advisable to have a jacket with you. This is actually another piece of gear that I didn't use this trip. It was actually quite warm in the evenings, and so I didn't really need the jumper. I may have actually worn it once or twice in the morning, but I didn't use it a lot. This is just a lightweight fleece from Mountain Designs. I've had this for a number of years now. I really like the small lightweight ones. I find they're just as warm as the larger, thicker ones, but obviously lighter and pack up smaller, so pretty good. I will carry a really small beanie. This is a skull cap, I think it's called, from Wilderness Wear. It's an Australian brand, it's made in Australia, it's merino wool. This is actually the Australian Army Ozcam camo pattern. I have a black one as well. I just couldn't find that one, so I took this one. But yeah, this is a really lightweight beanie. It just helps in the morning. You can shove in your pocket and it's pretty small. Weighs nothing, keeps you nice and warm, great bit of gear. I didn't actually use these, but I think it's important to have a spare pair of socks. I will wear the same pair of socks, and actually I don't think I showed you the socks I was wearing when I was doing the clothes that I wear. These are a new acquisition for me. These are made by Wilderness Wear as well. They're an Australian company, Australian made socks, so really cool. Socks are one of the things I think it's actually worthwhile spending the money for to get the high-end hiking version. So I wore this pair of socks for each of the 4 days, a lot of distance. Most of the time they were wet and covered in sand and mud, but they've held up beautifully. They're really nice and comfortable. They're obviously incredibly stylish, and yeah, they're kind of a wool, cotton, polyester blend. And for me, that blend strikes the right balance between being comfortable, between being relatively easy to dry, and also being hard wearing. So yeah, Wilderness Wear, really like them. Because I only wear one pair of socks, I do carry a spare pair of socks. These are not to wear during the day for walking. Once these are wet, there's no point getting your spare pair wet either. But this is just a lightweight pair of icebreaker socks. And these are something that I'll just have, so if in case it gets really cold, I can put those in the sleeping bag and I can just have a little bit of extra warmth on the feet. I also carry a lightweight microfiber towel. This is really handy, obviously if you have a swim like I did, or if you're walking through water and you sort of spend a lot of time being damp, means you can dry yourself off. But if any of your gear gets wet, I've used these before to mop out a tent. So a tent's been soaking wet, you can actually use this, wring it out, and you can soak up all that water and dry your gear. So pretty handy, doesn't weigh much, doesn't take up much space, but yeah, something that's quite useful. My main spare clothes that I carry with me to keep warm and dry are my merino thermal tops. Now these are quite heavy, but for me, they're breathable, they provide a lot of warmth, and you would have seen clips of me wearing these once I got to camp and had camp set up. I basically changed into my merinos. I've got a pair of icebreaker pants. These things are absolutely fantastic. Probably one of my favorite bits of Wilderness clothes that I have. This is a Mont merino top. Both excellent quality, both really warm. A little bit on the heavy side, but yeah, worth it to have nice, dry, warm clothes to change into. Because I am filming and I don't want to walk around just in a pair of merino kind of thermals, I do also just have a lightweight pair of running shorts, and this gives you then options too. If you were to damage your pants, you can change into shorts, or if it's a really hot day, you can change into shorts. But also it helps avoid having to carry a full extra pair of pants. This was something I chucked in right at the last minute when I left the car. It was just it's a lightweight t-shirt, and again, I did wear this when I got to camp, but probably wouldn't have needed both this and the thermal top, but I decided to take it anyway. So one thing that was new for me on this trip was a new sort of piece of gear that I tried. These are reef shoes by Quicksilver. They weigh about 300 grams. They've got a kind of a rubbery sole and basically just a neoprene sock. This is just to have something to walk around in camp and to be able to change out of your wet shoes. Really comfortable, have a good sole, so a good balance between being lightweight and usable. And it just meant that, particularly if you're walking in water all day, your feet are pretty soft and sort of shriveled by the end of that. Having a little bit of protection so you're not walking around in camp on bare feet is really good. And it just means you can actually look after your feet, because you can keep them dry. You're not wearing your wet shoes the whole night as well. I carry a pair of these lightweight gardening gloves or workman's gloves. They're basically just something you'd find at your gardening store or Bunnings. These I used a couple of times. One when I was lowering my pack down, just to protect from rope burn, but also on the really tricky descent that I didn't film much of, but when I was going through really thick vegetation and going over boulders and climbing over things, just to protect my hands a little bit. So yeah, don't weigh much, scrunch up into nothing. You can put them in little pockets and whatnot. It's just a handy thing to carry. I'm going to take you through some of the safety kit that I carry with me. I'll start firstly by what's in my pocket. I have asthma, and so I've always got a Ventolin with me, and I actually on this trip carried a spare Ventolin inhaler too, so really important for me. I also always in my pocket have a Swiss Army knife. I didn't carry a belt knife or something like a Moore on this trip, so this is my only knife and cutting tool. I actually didn't use it at all, interestingly, but I'm glad I have it with me. This is I think it's a Victorinox Fieldmaster. I'll have to double check the exact model number and type, but it's got a blade, a knife, and a pair of scissors, plus the regular things like a small knife and can opener, etc. What I've done to this one is I have actually got the tortoise fire starter. So that screws into the corkscrew, and on there as well is a bit of cotton wool that's dipped in wax, and that's sort of like a fire starter. So that's really cool, and it meant I didn't have to carry my fire steel, which is pretty heavy. So I had an alternative way of making fire if I needed to. Instead of the toothpick, I've actually got another ferro rod which you can put in there. So yeah, I've got just on the knife itself 2 different ways to make fire as well as a fire starter. Like I said, I didn't use it, but I wouldn't leave this at home for quits. Really handy to have in the bush. Instead of carrying around a heavy wallet, I use just a lightweight little card pouch that is made by Tier Gear in Tasmania. This just means I can carry around my driver's license, a credit card and some cash. Nice and safe in my pack or in my pocket. You would have seen from some of the shots that I carry this on the outside of my pack. This is my Garmin InReach satellite meshing device, and it also has GPS and mapping capabilities. I use it primarily to let my partner Alison know where I am. It sends a GPS waypoint location with a message. I really like this. I use it predominantly for that purpose. So I'll use this quite regularly through the course of a day on a trip like this. I'll normally send a message at night, here's where I'm camping. It means that my last known location, should something go wrong, can be narrowed down pretty quickly. But I used this in a slightly different way on this trip. When I was doing a really precarious descent on day 2, it was a very stressful climb into the gorge, very thick undergrowth, and it was clear to me that if I had any issues, it would be very difficult for anybody to find me. And so I actually was sending messages from this device every 5 or 10 minutes as I was making my way down into the gorge, just so that my last known location and my track would be relatively easy to find, and if something happened, people would hopefully be able to find me if I needed help. So yeah, really nice bit of kit, certainly not cheap. I think you're looking at about $700 for something like this, and there is a $20 a month subscription cost in order to use the satellite network. For me, this is an absolute essential piece of gear. I would never leave home without this again. The ability for two-way communication in the bush is just essential these days. I think it's important that you take responsibility for your own safety. And yeah, for me, this also just helps with a peace of mind for those at home who otherwise wouldn't know where you are or if you're safe. So yeah, really nice bit of kit. I do also carry a personal locating beacon. I've explained this in my previous gear review video a few years ago about why I carry both, but essentially if I trigger this, a helicopter is going to come, and that is a lot of peace of mind. It's monitored by a government authority, and there's a whole bunch of different regulations around once this is triggered, how the emergency services will respond. So yeah, for me, this is what I rely on for my safety. So one thing I did have on this trip is a good length of paracord. This is 30 meters of paracord, and I took this because I knew I had to lower my pack down through that pass in the cliffs. You would have seen me do that. I couldn't quite remember how tall that pass was or how much paracord I need, so I went for more paracord than I needed. I probably ended up only using about 10 or 15 meters of cord, so I could have got away with taking a lot less. But it's just handy to have this. Lowering packs is a pretty common thing you do when you're on a trip in rugged country. And you can also use it for things like stringing up a washing line if you want to dry some clothes at camp and that kind of thing. So handy to have a bit of paracord. So I'll go through now my first aid kit. I won't go through this in a lot of detail. I'll just kind of gloss over what I carry. So I have a little Bic lighter and a small compass. They just stay in my first aid kit as a bit of a safety item. I have smart snake bite bandages. These things are really cool. They have a geometric shape on the bandage that will show you when you've applied the right pressure. I have instructions on how to use it, because when you're in a stressful situation, actually having some written guidelines to follow is probably quite useful. I have just things like burn aid, a little bit of antiseptic cream, some bandages. I've got some antihistamines, some electrolytes, paracetamol, ibuprofen, some Voltaren, that kind of stuff. And then a little pouch of band-aids, alcohol swabs, safety pins, and again some first aid instructions. So I keep everything in little Ziploc bags. That's in some double dry bags. And on this trip, something I did take is some Bushman's insect repellent. Now I only used this on the first day and the last day, but up on the plateau, when I was out of the gorge, the flies were absolutely horrendous. And I had been out there on a bit of a recce a couple of weeks beforehand, and I knew the flies were going to be bad. So yeah, this helped at least make it bearable. Alrighty, so this is my little sort of hygiene toiletry kit. I have a little juice aluminium trowel, and to be honest, I didn't really use this a lot. I can dig a hole with a stick or make a sort of impression with my foot. You can bury what you need to that way. And then in here I've got a couple of dry bags. So all I have here is some hand sanitizer, some toilet paper and a pack of tissues. I keep that in a Ziploc bag and then double dry bag it, because you don't want soggy toilet paper. So all right, starting to get through some more of the exciting stuff now. I always carry 2 1-litre bottles, and I have carabiners to make sure I can secure these to my pack. I've been using Nalgene bottles for years and I absolutely love them. I have many of them. I normally use the normal ones that you would be used to and you'd see in the shops, and you've seen me use them on many occasions beforehand. They're made of a tough, sort of really rigid type of plastic. And when I weighed them, I was actually surprised that between 2 empty bottles and 2 carabiners, I was looking at nearly 400 grams. Because I had a lot of gear to carry this trip, I was very keen to try and minimize my weight. And so I actually switched out to some Nalgene bottles that are made from high density polyethylene, so HDPE. It's the same sort of plastic you would find on a 2-litre milk bottle here in Australia. So these are actually about half that weight. So I was able to save a couple of hundred grams effectively by doing that. Interesting to note that the HDPE Nalgene bottles are actually about 100 millilitres of volume smaller, but still a nice tough bottle, and yeah, I really like these. I'll always have a packet of Catadine micropore treatment tablets in my hip pouch, and that just means if I need to treat water on the go really quickly, I've got some water sterilisation tabs and I can do that really quickly. I didn't use these on the trip because I actually have a new water filter. So I've been using for the first time the Catadine Be-Free system. I have tried this previously where I just had a cartridge and I used a different type of pouch and it didn't work very well, but I absolutely love this thing. This is a 3-litre pouch. You basically just scoop up the water, screw that in there, and it means you can basically drink straight from it, and you can actually use this to carry water. So what I wanted in a water filter was something that allows me to quickly treat water, so I don't need to use chemical treatment, but also something that allows me to carry water, a larger volume of water. So that was really important because when I was up on the plateau, I had my 2 1-litre bottles, so I had 2 litres there, but where I was camping, I didn't actually have access to water. So I needed to have this full of water in order to have a good enough supply of water to last the camp. The other benefit of this is when I was walking in the gorge, I didn't have to carry any water at all, and that was a huge plus because this is so quick and easy to use. I could just, when I was thirsty, stop, had this in my pouch on my hip, and I could just unzip that, scoop some water up and just drink enough and then put it back in there. And because it's a really lightweight plastic, it does fold up. You can unscrew that. So yeah, a really nice bit of kit. The only thing that I don't like about this is the pouch is actually quite, I don't think it's very durable. And so I actually already have a pinhole in here. I'm not sure how that got in there. It's still usable. It's not going to compromise its ability. Water only comes out when you're really squeezing it quite hard. But yeah, something to be mindful of is they're not the most durable pouch. But easy convenience, fantastic piece of gear. The only thing that I've experienced the first time I was using one of these is when you're using it in water that's quite sediment loaded, so sort of cloudy, dirty water, these things block up really quickly, but they're absolutely perfect when the water is relatively clear. So yeah, I really like that. So I've been using this for the last year or so. This is my Soto Windmaster. It's about 70 grams, but really, really good quality flame. You can sort of simmer it to a slightly lower temperature as well. So small, lightweight. I really like this stove. I did take a 230 gram gas canister. I was going to try and see if I can get away with a 100 gram canister, but I decided on the bigger one just in case. And listening to it, I reckon I've probably only used half of it. So I probably could have got away with a smaller canister on this trip. So this is my Toaks titanium pot. It has a bail handle, and it has a handle, has a lid, and it has a couple of holes so you can drain things like pasta and whatnot. I really like this pot. The only thing I don't like about it is the lid doesn't fit very well. And so it kind of, yeah, that kind of annoys me. I'll probably look to change this out at some point, but a good lightweight titanium pot, these are pretty reasonably priced. So yeah, a nice option if you're looking for a lightweight cooking pot. For me, this is all I need on a 4-day trip. I rehydrated meals in this. I made water for coffee and porridge and that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's all you need. I'll also carry just a little scourer, and that means I can use that to clean the pot out when I've got access to water. And I'll keep in there my fire kit. So I've got a Bic lighter and some fire starters that are made out of cotton makeup remover pads dipped in candle wax. On this trip, I took my Out and Goods titanium cup. This is an insulated double wall cup. I really like this cup. I think I'm going to try and get a really lightweight, small single walled cup for summer, and then use this in the winter when it's a bit colder. This is great, but it's about just over 100 grams, so it's actually quite heavy. And normally I don't care about weight too much because I'm doing a single overnighter. I'm not going that far, but on a trip like this, when you're doing big distances, you're doing big days, you're doing multiple days, having lightweight gear is actually quite important. And I think I'm gonna go through a bit of an exercise of trying to lightweight my kit even further. A good example of a lightweight kit is my Tetra Drip coffee filter. This is made from lightweight plastic. There's 3 pieces. Yeah, so it just snaps together, and it means you can have a really good cup of coffee in the bush. It does use filter papers, so these are a Hario filter paper, nice small one, but yeah, makes an excellent cup of coffee. So this is my sleep system I took on this trip. I have a Cedar Summit Aerios travel pillow. These things are about 70 grams. I've had this one for a long time, and it's actually, I think, started to lose its shape. So I'll probably need to switch that one out soon. But yeah, really lightweight, quite comfortable. The only thing I would like for this is to have it a little bit higher. But what I found is I can use spare clothes and put those underneath my pillow, and that helps prop it up at the appropriate height for me. So something like this, a bit of a luxury, but it helps you have a good night's sleep. And that's really important when you're doing big days, and actually being able to sleep well makes it possible to get up and do it again the next day. It's looking pretty feral, it's pretty dirty, so yeah, excuse that, but it's had lots of use. So my sleeping bag. This is a Mont Helium 600. It's a really high quality sleeping bag, very expensive, one of the more expensive pieces of kit that I have. But I love this bag. It's just very durable, very comfortable, very warm and lightweight. I think it's about 800 grams. It's got a down feel in there, just perfect. Full length zip. It's got a, you can unzip your feet if you get too warm. But yeah, really like this sleeping bag. Because it was relatively warm this trip, I probably could have got away with a smaller, lighter weight sleeping bag, and that's something to consider. But I try and have as many single-use items as I can, so I'm not switching gear throughout the season. But yeah, this for me, I really like this bag. Might make great sleeping bags. It's probably, in terms of ultralight hiking, a little bit on the heavy side, but it does sleep down to, comfortably down to well into the minuses. So everything's a trade-off. You're trading off weight, price, and durability. For me, this is about right. I really like this bag. So this is a new addition for me. This is a new sleep pad that I bought specifically for this trip. I've been using the Climate Static V insulated pad. So that for me was my evaluation pad. I wanted to start using air pads, but not spend too much money until I was sure that this was going to work for me. The only problem with the Static V is it's quite a heavy pad. It's about 700 or 800 grams. So I looked around on the market and I found a Nemo Tensor insulated pad. This thing comes in about 350 grams. So it's very, very lightweight. Rolls up nice and small, so it's easy to carry and pack. It's a little bit noisy when you sleep on it. It's supposed to be one of the more quiet ones, but it actually is much noisier than the Static V. For me, I'd probably like something larger. I can just lay on it, it just fits me. And if I roll over my side, I really like the fact I can't feel the bottom, so you can side sleep on something like this. But this is the regular mummy, and I think I'd go for the regular pad, just so I've got a little bit of extra room on the sides, meaning I can lie on my back and actually put my arms down. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to use this one on a long-term basis because of that. Very good for this trip because it saved a lot of weight, let me cut out 300 or 400 grams. But yeah, I'm probably going to look for something just a little larger. And then yeah, maybe I'll just save this for the long trips where I need to be really weight conscious. So in terms of my shelter, on this trip I used my Nemo Dagger 2P. This is a tent I've been using now for a good, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years. It's really quite easy to set up. It's freestanding, so I can move it around, and that means you have the flexibility. So when I was camping on the first night, I was able to set this up on a plateau. I wasn't able to use pegs, but I was able to, get a nice pitch because it's freestanding. But similarly, I can use it on the riverbank, on a traditional campsite. So yeah, very versatile. It's just under 2 kilograms. And in this tent, I also have the ground sheet and I have the gear loft. If I had remembered I'd had the gear loft installed, I probably would have taken that out just to save some weight, probably like 100 grams or something like that. So one thing I do is I pack my tent, I pack the tent, the fabric into a dry bag, and then I leave the pole separate. I actually use my titanium cup, and I put the titanium cup around the bottom. There's a couple of reasons for that. It makes really efficient use. It means the space inside your cup's not dead space in your pack, but it also protects. There's some quite sharp bit on the poles there where they join together, and if you sort of jump off a rock or you move quickly, you can actually have them come through the bottom of your pack, and I've had that happen before. So yeah, to protect my pack and my gear, and to save some dead space, I use my titanium cup to sort of pack the tent poles in the bag. In future, I think I'm going to move to a one-man tent. This is about 2 kilograms of weight, and if I get a one-man tent, I can probably shave 1 kilo off my pack weight. And that's actually probably the biggest weight saving I can make in terms of all the gear that I've got. So I think I'll be looking for that in the future. It comes at a cost. A two-man tent means you've got plenty of space. You can have all of your gear inside of your tent. And so if you've got a wet day or it's rainy or you just want to sort out your gear at night time, you've got space to do that. But everything's a trade-off, and you've got to weigh up the usability, the weight, the durability, all that kind of stuff. So the pack that I carried on this trip is I've had this now for a couple of years. It's starting to show some pretty significant wear. I treat my gear relatively well, but I take it through rough country and I don't expect things to last forever. So this has had probably a good 2.5 years of solid use. It's been on all my trips since I've got it. I really like it. It's 65 litres, it's 1100 grams or thereabouts, so it's about the right balance of weight and size. This is the first big trip I've done it, so multi-day, so 4 days, and I was able to fit everything in here, so I was pretty happy with that. I think in the past I've always tried to use about a 70 litre pack, and they're getting harder and harder to find these days as people use lighter and smaller gear. So yeah, for me about 65 litres is about right. Yeah, not much to say about it. Nice, comfortable, durable pack. It's got hip pockets so you can carry stuff and access it on the trail. It's got one big pouch and then a little top pouch. On this trip, I carried most of my gear inside and the main stuff. In here I had my first aid kit and my paracord. I had my gloves and water filter and a couple of Cliff Bars and snacks in my pockets. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. So this is a Granite Gear Crown V2. Really nice pack. Yeah, I like it a lot. So because I'm walking the water and on occasions I'm swimming through big stretches of the creek, my pack is either fully submerged or it's floating on top of the surface. I keep all of my gear in different dry bags. So I've got a range of different dry bags, compression sacks, small ones, I've got lightweight ones, big heavy duty ones. So yeah, for me, dry bags are pretty essential to make sure you keep your gear in good order and keep it dry, because the last thing you want to happen is to get to camp and have a wet sleeping bag. Now unfortunately, even though on this trip I did double bag my sleeping bag, I had my sleeping bag in a compression sack, that's a dry bag, and then a big heavy duty bag. Something failed and water found its way into my sleeping bag. So that's not ideal by any means. So yeah, something you need to know about dry bags is they're typically not made to be submersible. So they're called dry bags, but they're actually not waterproof. Certainly not if you submerge them at all. So that's why a double dry bag, and most times a double dry bag works, but it's not guaranteed. And I think because they're actually quite lightweight and actually not that durable, they probably don't last very long. So the more you use them, the more wear you've got on the stitching. This is one of the brand new ones I bought for this trip. It's an outdoor research one, and I managed to put holes in it on the first day. So you can see I've done a bit of a patch up job there. I carry sail tape with me, and so I was able to sort of patch up those holes. But yeah, for me this is a constant struggle trying to find good quality dry bags that actually keep your gear dry and that are fairly durable. So I'm gonna have to do a bit of an audit. I'm gonna have to, I think, go through and sort of, I think, replace quite a few of them. For me, the best ones I found are the non-ultralight versions of the Xped dry bags. They're the ones that last me the longest and provide the best waterproofing. They can be quite difficult to find, so I think I'm going to make a big order of those and just get a whole bunch of new ones. Alrighty, so getting to some of the last bits of gear. I did on this trip carry in some gin. I didn't have a beer this trip, but I had a little bit of gin that I was able to sip at night time, so that was quite enjoyable. I'll always have a foam sit pad. So this is just a little piece of a yoga mat that's been cut off. I rolled it up and stick it to the front of my pack. This is just really makes camp comfortable. So it gives you something to sit on. It means you can insulate yourself from the coolness of the ground, and it just provides a spot where you can kneel sort of next to your tent if you're sort of organising stuff in your tent. It gives you a place to put stuff when you're sort of repacking in the morning. So yeah, I always have a piece of foam, really cheap, really lightweight, but yeah, it just makes things a lot more comfortable. I've been using my Garmin Instinct watch. This is a sort of the base model type outdoor watch, but for me it has all the function I need: step counter, temperature, compass, GPS capabilities, tracking, all that kind of stuff. I typically just use it as a watch. Things like the altimeter are quite handy. But yeah, it's nice to know. I think I did 36,000 steps the first day and about 28,000 on the third day, which was another big day too. So yeah, it's handy piece of kit to have. I don't really use the GPS functionality and the tracking when I'm on a walk because that depletes the battery, but just to have a watch to know what time is. And you'll quite often hear me in videos talking about it's this time, because what I'm thinking about always is how much time do I have before it gets dark. And on my third day of the trip, when I was doing that really big day in the gorge, I was really pushing up against when it was getting dark. So being able to tell the time, know what it is really important, and it helps you plan and manage the distance that you're covering. Yeah, so if you know that you've got 2 hours of light left, you can kind of figure out how far you can travel in that distance. And just having this, it gives you some extra options. So I can take a GPS waypoint with the car, for example, and if all my other gear fails, I can at least navigate back to the car using my watch. So yeah, pretty nifty. So another new acquisition on this trip was a Nightcore MU25 headlamp. This thing weighs like 50 grams. It's absolutely fantastic, really small, lightweight, and has a nice bright headlamp. It also has a red light to preserve your night vision. So yeah, I'm super impressed with this headlamp. It's rechargeable, so yeah, just love it. I carry a power bank. I've got lots of camera gear, lots of lights, stuff that needs a lot of power. So this is a MI power bank. It's 20,000 milliamp hours. It's pretty heavy. It's about 370 grams, but I haven't been able to find a lighter one that has the same capacity. So I used more than half of this on the trip. So yeah, something I need to be conscious of in future is how much power I'm using my phone, how many camera batteries I'm using, how much lights I'm using, the microphone that has a battery, lots of things I'm charging up. So I'll also carry a USB-C cable and a micro USB cable. What else haven't I shown you? Oh yes, the main way I navigate is through my phone. So I've got Backcountry Navigator loaded onto my phone with all the maps and imagery that I'll need for my trip, and that's just perfect for me. Unfortunately on this trip, after I finished the last shot and I switched the camera off, about 5 minutes later I tripped over a bush stump that had been burnt down in the fires. There's about that much left on it. I was looking at the maps as I was walking, I tripped on that stump and I actually managed to slam my phone down on a piece of granite or sandstone. So this phone, the screen is very irreparably smashed. So that's the end of this phone. It's about 3.5 years old. And unfortunately, yeah, I damaged it on that trip. But yeah, that's how I navigate. GPS, of course, take photos and all that kind of stuff as well. Oh, just looking at my gear, I think I forgot to show you, I carry a titanium spork. This is probably one of the best bits of gear I've ever purchased. There's no trade-offs to make here. It's lightweight, it's durable, and it's inexpensive. I think I paid about $13 off eBay for it. It's a titanium spork by Keith. It has a hook on there, which is actually a bottle opener, but I use the hook all the time to pop the lid off my pot. So you can see you can kind of carry the top of your pot, the lid. Yeah, absolutely love that. And because I am carrying everything in dry bags, I'm just keeping the spork in its little sack that it came in to protect the dry bags. I keep all of my camera gear in a soft little pouch like this. This is just a cheap pouch I got off Amazon. I've got things like my GoPro, my microphone. Unfortunately, I killed this GoPro because it went in the water when it had a microphone plugged in, so that's all probably much ruined. Got things like, you know, a head mount for the GoPro. I've got a spare lens for my camera. I'll keep my power bank in here. Got spare batteries for the GoPro, spare batteries for the camera, and I'll keep things like my light. I'm also carrying a Slick 500G tripod. So this is the lightest, smallest tripod I've been able to find. And yeah, I unfortunately managed to lose a bolt out of it on the second day. And I didn't realize until I got to camp and was gonna set the camera up, and the leg just came out of my hand. Luckily I had a zip tie in the bag so I could actually fix it. I think I do have a spare bolt I can use, so I can probably get this one back up and running. But yeah, this is for me the lightest tripod I've been able to find at about 500 grams, and it packs down nice and small. So this is what I use for most of my filming. The main camera I use is an Olympus OMD EM1 Mark III. It's a great mirrorless camera. It's micro four thirds, so some people don't like those because they've got a smaller sensor. I love it. For me, the camera, the colors, it does a really great job of filming. It's got brilliant image stabilization, and I've got now a new lens that I used on this trip is a professional 7 to 14 millimeter wide angle lens, and that got some of those beautiful wide angle shots on this trip. So yeah, really like that. I've got a Rode Video Mic Pro Plus microphone. I'm not sure if I like that or not. I've been using these little Rode Micros for a while. They're a lot simpler. They don't require a battery. But the only downside to the Olympus is it has terrible audio preamps. And so what I do is I turn the microphone sound right up and the internal camera sound all the way down. And that's why I have the Pro Mic Plus, and that just helps me manage that sort of audio. It's still a work in progress, but I think I'm getting to a point where I'm pretty happy with the audio quality. Yeah, I'm constantly evolving my camera gear as I learn more about how to make good quality film, how to shoot good quality film with good quality audio. So yeah. The only last bit of kit I think I've got is my light, which I use for filming, which is an Aperture. It's just a very small, lightweight, inexpensive light that's been really, really good for shooting at night time. So I won't talk about food. I do have an Instagram post that shows all the food that I took on this trip. If you want to go check that out, just check out Eric Off Track on Instagram and you'll be able to find that photo and as a list of what I took on this trip. So guys, that's it. That's all the gear I had with me on this trip. Everything I had in my backpack or in my pockets or I was wearing. I hope you found that useful. I hope you've enjoyed it. This is the first full gear review video I've done in about 3 years, I think it is. So there's been a fair bit of change in my equipment since then. If you want to have a look at that video, I'll post a link here somewhere. Yeah, that was in the early days of the channel, so the filming and the audio might not be so good, but yeah, could be interesting to see how the kit that I carry has evolved over the last 3 years. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop one of those below. If you have any tips for me, things that are working well for you, things you think I might find useful, yeah, I'd be grateful to hear from you, so please drop a comment below too. Otherwise, I should be back in the bush soon, and we'll see you on that one. So thanks very much, guys. We'll see you then. Bye.